Well, a few months ago, after the Supreme Court struck down Section 66A of the IT Act, online activists were saying net azadi. But now the Supreme Court has made it clear there needs to be a new law to curb malicious and defamatory messages being circulated online. On the show this evening, curbing defamation, do we need a social media law in this country? Well, we're going to take a look at all aspects of this particular case. But let me just come to you first as somebody who represents Shreya Singhal, who in a sense has been in the forefront of the fight against Section 66A. Do you or does she not believe now that given the fact that there is so much malicious content that exists out there, there needs to be some sort of a law to protect citizens?
Well, I would say as a lawyer, there is no need of a separate, distinct law to deal with the speech on the internet. The reason being, when the Information Technology Act was enacted in the year 2000, there was a corresponding amendment made to the Indian Evidence Act, a very significant amendment. Section 65B was brought in. The implication of that is that today, anything that's written through a mobile phone, through a computer, anything on the internet is as admissible as anything else that you might see on a newspaper or any other medium.
Right.
So if that being the case, the implication is that you can today invoke any and every section of the Indian Penal Code that deals with speech while dealing with anything that's said on the internet. So you don't need a separate, distinct law to deal with anything that's spoken on the internet. And in fact, because the offences in the Indian Penal Code are well defined, you have well judicially defined contours, you can actually apply this existing law. But I must concede though.
But that is Section 499 and 500 as far as defamation is concerned.
True.
But my understanding, Mr. Gupta, is that cyber stalking, bullying or annoyance, that doesn't get covered under the IPC in the same manner, which is why we perhaps need something, perhaps not quite as the manner in which 66A was, but something still quite significant is what is required.
So let's, I think you brought out the right point. See, this is, one is this free speech argument, which is 66A, and all of us stood for that. And I, on your channels, we've debated that, and everybody agreed on March 24th when the, very historic verdict came out, and we welcome that. But, the points, there are so many things happening in the technology world, and some of them you brought out: cyber stalking, cyber bullying, child pornography, issues around public disorder, national security. Now, whether that needs to be addressed via law or guidelines or enforcement guidelines or a coordination committee will have to be seen. But I think there is a need for setting up some mechanism to control that. I'm again being very categorical, limited to these areas where which is not impeding free speech. So, there is a need to do something there. Free speech needs to be free speech.
But Anna, that's really been the problem, hasn't it? If we look at what Section 66A said, it was so vague that free speech was really badly affected. And what did the Supreme Court actually said about it is what we need to perhaps keep in mind as we debate the possibility of a new law. So I'm just going to read out what the Supreme Court's problems were with Section 66A. They said Section 66A is so widely cast that virtually any opinion on any subject would be covered by it, as any serious opinion dissenting with the mores of the day would be caught within its net. Such is the reach of the section, and if it is to withstand the test of constitutionality, the chilling effect on free speech would be total, right? Which is why it was put aside. If this is the principle that the Supreme Court has made, how can we ensure that people are still protected while ensuring that basic free speech is protected?
First of all, I think I should point out that when Section 66A was scrapped, there were many activists who pointed out that we should not be painting a picture of the internet as some kind of paradise. The internet can be, while it's a great space for ideas exchange, it can be very misogynistic, casteist, classist, communal, and so on and so forth. But I think that asking for another law really makes no sense, because if you don't have police will, and you don't have police training, and you don't have political will, then really another law is just another law that nobody is going to bother with. For instance, we know, and it's good that Mr. Gupta is here, when the political and social activist Kavita Krishnan and Shruti Seth, the actress, criticized the PM's selfie with daughter campaign, they were attacked viciously and vilely with the most sickening misogynistic and communal abuse by BJP's followers, and particularly Mr. Modi's fans. No, please don't interrupt me. I didn't interrupt you. I did not interrupt you. I did not interrupt you, Mr. Gupta. Mr. Gupta, I did not interrupt.
So when that happened, when you make it BJP followers, Modi followers, this I disagree with.
So you mean a criticism of Modi was being criticized by Congress followers or left followers? They criticized Mr. Modi. They were abused by Mr. Modi's followers. I did not interrupt you. Please allow me to speak. So the point I want to make, Vishnu, this is very unfair.
I'll come to you
next. This is very unfair.
You'll get your chance. Let her make a statement. You will.
The journalist, Mr. Prashanto Roy, had reported that Kavita Krishnan had taken screenshots of the abuse and she had sent it to the Delhi Police Commissioner, got no response. Shruti Seth was quoted in the same article, and she has said it elsewhere also, I believe, that she also approached the police and she was told not to bother because it's very difficult to investigate these cases. She will only get into further trouble. When the police are not trained and the police are not interested, it doesn't matter all the law.
You're talking about quote-unquote sympathizers of Mr. Modi, and you're talking about police inaction in the same breath. But let's just try and bring this, in two separate parts. The fact of the matter is there are people who troll. There are people who are defamatory. There are people who are
absolutely
hurtful.
Nobody's going to deny that.
There are people who claim to be supporters of Mr. Modi. I'm not sure if Mr. Modi necessarily subscribes to what they say
so
or
Vishnu,
what they
you just said
in.
something. There are a lot of people who can create an ID and claim to be a supporter X, Y or Z. Now, you can't just generalize.
Since you interrupted me, I must know. Since you interrupted me, let me also point out, Mr. Modi himself follows some very abusive Twitter handles.
Well, I can
Please
give you,
do not. Since you interrupted me, I don't think you deserve the courtesy of not being interrupted.
I don't think either of you should interrupt, but please continue with your point.
This conversation always leads to a BJP, a Congress, a Aam Aadmi Party. I can give examples from all these people. Whether from the Congress, from the Aam Aadmi Party, from the BJP, I don't know who does not abuse. There are people who will abuse. There are trolls out there. The problem is a bigger problem. We are trying to make it a political discussion. I'm trying to make it a civil discussion. The issue over here
is meshed, isn't it?
But there is an issue here. See, there is a societal issue. Politics is part of that societal issue. There is a lot of trolling that happens, which is wrong. There is a lot of defamation that happens. You are talking about people that you probably can identify. I'm talking about a lot of anonymous people that can be leashed today, and an atmosphere can be created which is defamatory in nature. And suddenly you have thousands of tweets that can go out or thousands of posts that can go out. Now, the question that you raised, the original question that you raised, do we need some guidelines? Do we need mechanisms? One thing that, whether she has disagreed with me or not, but I will agree with her. We will need good education at the enforcement level. We need education at the ground level because that's where our officers are not trained.
Anuva Pal, let me come across to you next. The question is this: in as much as a lot of us are trolled actively by people who say that they are bhakts of a certain cause, the fact of the matter is, what will define defamatory? What will define abuse? What is the line between somebody being acceptedly hurt or insulted and someone perhaps being oversensitive? Who defines that? How do we go ahead with that?
Exactly, Vishnu. I find that to be particularly amusing. And I agree and disagree with pretty much everyone on the panel, but right here is reflective of what will happen online. Someone who's a supporter of the BJP will find something said against the BJP defamatory. Someone who is a supporter of Kavita Krishnan will find a bunch of things said against them defamatory. So, I'm just picturing a future if there's a law where there will be a police body that will be trained to do what? To tell the difference between comedy and irony and insult. There will be a humor coach and that person will say, nahi, ye just comedy hai, nahi, ye insulting hai, nahi, ye vicious hai.
May I respond to that?
It will be training in, what will they train in? Language? I don't know what they'll train